Hey, welcome to our podcast today. Ask Aaron, ask EJ. This is Coach Eric Johnson, the brand.
This is Coach Aaron Thigpen, the source. EJ,
Hey,
um,
hey.
been looking at actually it's been coming up on my feed, all the things for college baseball season
Right.
coming up and the rankings for all the different collegiate programs. And I
Right.
noticed that there are only a handful of West Coast schools in that ranking, and it's really being dominated by SEC schools in the South, kind of that northeast, southeast, or whatever area, and just wondering what's going on. Why the fall off on the West Coast schools, and I guess to a further extent, is there some kind of recruiting strategy that athletes now have to consider when playing baseball? So if those major programs are kind of dominating the landscape, should athletes be opting to play baseball at smaller schools in those regions as an option, or at junior colleges in that region as an option, if that's where the hotbed of baseball has now shifted?
Wow, the $100,000 question about demographics in baseball for the high school player, the collegiate player, everything like that. Um, it's a good subject, Aaron, because if you talk about West Coast baseball and Midwest baseball, Northwest, Southwest, all that, all the regions. But you really have talked about four conferences, the big four. You've talked about the SEC, Alabama, Vanderbilt, that conference, those guys, Texas. And then you've talked about the Big Ten, Ohio State, Michigan. Okay. You talked the Big 12, you're talking about Arizona, you're talking about Arizona, USC, UCLA, all those guys. And then you talk about ACC, North Carolina, Wake Forest, all those guys. So you've got four conferences that have 1% of the players that are what I call the one percenters who are the best player in their area, maybe in their state, let alone their region, going to those schools. And And is there a conference out on the West Coast now, Aaron, that's part of the Big Four? The Pac-12 used to be. It's no longer the Pac-12. It's going to start up again, by the way,
Mhm.
but it's not the same flavor as the Oregon State, UCLA, USC, the traditional Stanford Cal, the traditional Arizona State. A war. Every weekend was a war in the Pac-12. That is dissolved now. It became about football, money, basketball revenue, all kinds of things, NIL. So I say this to players that it seems like a lot of those schools are in the South or the Southeast now, or the Midwest, upper, part of the country. And it's just the way it is now. It seems like they're more vetted in their sports. You got bigger booster clubs, you got stadiums now, you got stadiums at all these places, you got indoor facilities that rival football fields for baseball. Baseball now is a major sport back there now. And out here, we're trying to figure out what field we're going to play on, what space we have on the West Coast. Some of the best programs, Oregon State, they left to go join those conferences because they had the facilities to do so. UC just built a new field down there. It's unbelievable, and their facilities. But guess what? They're in one of those conferences over there in the Power Four.
Mhm.
So I think facilities and what we have here on the West Coast have totally changed. The kids see that in a recruiting trip and go, "I want to go over there. I want to see that." Even if it's D2, D3, NAIA, it's the same thing. They're like going, "Hey, listen, I want out of this. I want to go over there." I can get my degree over there, and I have a place that I really like, and this is what I thought baseball would be like in college. So players have a different impression, even at the junior college level, Aaron. It's the same thing. The facilities are amazing. But here in the West Coast, what are we, landlocked or something? That we can't create facilities and have that same appeal? Are booster clubs the same? Are the alumni the same? I mean, I think that mentality of this is what we have, this is what we're doing here. We have a baseball program and this is what we're doing, and we're all in. On the West Coast, I think the mentality is, are we all in, or do we have too many other extracurricular activities we're doing? And are we vested in that? So I think the mentality shift is of that.
Mhm.
Kids want to go to those places because the mentality of how they see things, it's aligned to where those schools are out there on the, as they call, the right side of the country versus the left side, which is the West Coast.
Right.
So it's interesting, but I think more players are shifting to that. I mean, I think that's a major issue of why players are doing that, and players are leaving to go play in other places too.
Yeah,
Right.
and that was my question because obviously, if that there's a migration of the top tier athletes, is there also a migration of the not necessarily volunteer athlete, but
Right.
the everyday
Right.
athlete to say, hey, you know what? I think I'm gonna consider, even though I can't go to play for Tennessee, I might go play for another school in Tennessee because baseball is more serious, or baseball, the level of baseball and level of play, all those factors you just talked about are better. So even though I might not be at one of those high level schools, maybe I do Middle Tennessee State. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
And
yeah,
and
or
is
East
that
Tennessee.
baseball going to be better than going to, I don't know, whatever the West Coast equivalent is over here?
Right.
And is that so? Is now that migration happening at for like your 2-star, 3-star athlete versus your 4 or 5-star athlete? That's what I'm asking.
I agree with you. That is happening. I mean, you see players and coaches over there want to get West Coast players. They
Hmm.
do because they're like, hey, these kids play all year. They know how to play the game. Let's get some of them out there. And if they have the same mentality as what that coach from, back in the southern part of the region or the right side of the United States, as I call it, that's important. And kids like that, and they're happier doing that. The recruiting war, as they call it, between Division twos and Division twos, NAIAs, Division one mid majors. You see a lot of those players in the West Coast are going back to like a Florida International, or they're
Hmm.
going to Eastern Tennessee, and the schools are Coastal Carolina, and
Yeah.
they're going to the World Series, and they're
Right.
going,
Right.
well, I'm going to go play for Campbell in North Carolina, who's in the Big South, and man, look how many guys they're producing, so that mentality shift is happening, Aaron. And even at the junior college level, players are like, I'm going out of state, DJ, or I'm going here. And it's not where you would think it would be because of that. So I think there is a shift. And I think players are more open to that now than they ever have been before because it's all right to do that now. And it used to be, when you went to the World Series, the West Coast, College World Series, West Coast guys, right? And then you go, oh, you got your guys from Alabama and you got your guys from Tennessee and then you got your guys from up in Rhode Island. And it's not like that anymore.
Mm.
You've got players in the South going, okay, where are you from? Well, I got this guy from California, I got this guy from Arizona, and I've got all these guys from Georgia and Alabama and Florida, and I got this guy from Maine, and that's their roster now. They go in for the best players, and the best players want to go at the best programs. And if your league is good, the players want to go to that school. Exposure, keyword, exposure. Kids want more exposure and they want to have, this Major League Baseball feel like, oh man, I feel like I'm important. This is like a great place for me. this might be my major league. So I want to play in an atmosphere like that. Like, for instance, we have an athlete who went to, it's Ethan Liao, you know,
Hmm.
and he went down south to play because of that.
Hmm.
Their stadium, the atmosphere and stuff like that. He wasn't getting any love on the West Coast, but he went to a Division I school in the South and is getting a lot of love and is going to be a starting right fielder this year. And I'm scratching my head because he played in our West Coast school, grabbing this kid. This kid's exceptional, but he didn't maybe fit their prototype.
Right.
What's the prototype? I mean, West Coast baseball, we winning games all the time versus schools down there. Who's in the World Series every year? What? We got Arizona and we've got UCLA, and we have some other teams that are at the regional level, but they never get to the super regional and they don't get to the World Series. Every once in a while, we'll get a team to the World Series from the West Coast. But it used to be, man, you would have two, three teams from the West Coast going to the College World Series. Now you don't have that. You have last year was incredible. ACC and SEC represented college baseball last year at the World Series.
Yeah.
So I think you have that. And I think at the lower level, if you want to call it that, I don't call it that. I think college baseball at any level is competitive.
Hmm.
But even if you look at the Division II World Series or you look at Division III World Series, it's the same scenario. You're seeing this happen across the board. I think players on the West Coast versus players on the Eastern Seaboard or that way, East Coast. Is there a mentality that's different? Are the athletes different in how they think? Are their parents different in how they think? You know, there's been a shift. It used to be a West Coast baseball was a West Coast game.
Hmm.
It's no longer a West Coast game. It is, yeah, there are players on the West Coast, but you're talking about the South, Southeast, Midwest. It's changed. It's changed quite a bit now. And I've seen it at the youth level. I've seen it at the high school level, and we're definitely seeing it at the collegiate level, and you're seeing it at the major league level too a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think it's very interesting of how it's manifested over the past 10 years, Aaron. This has been a phenomenon that's been going on for a while now, and I think now it's right in front of us. It's amazing. UCLA is the number one ranked team in the country now by D1 baseball. Okay. But if you go and you look at the rest of the teams on the West Coast, Aaron, I think it's pretty interesting. Okay. Listen to this. You've got UCLA, that's one team. And as I go down that list, what other West Coast team is there? And I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm
Got
looking.
Oregon State, I think.
Guess what?
Is
Arizona's
Arizona.
24.
Yeah.
Okay. Listen to the rest of them. LSU.
Hmm.
Texas, Mississippi State, Georgia Tech, Coastal Carolina, Arkansas, Louisville, Auburn, TCU, North Carolina. Oregon State's the other one. You're right, Oregon State. So three teams. But look, Florida, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida State,
Hmm.
North
Yeah.
Carolina State, Kentucky, Clemson, Southern Miss,
Yeah.
Wake Forest, Miami, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you? They're all in that area that
Right.
baseball mecca now. What West Coast was baseball mecca back in the day. It's not West Coast. It's not the mecca anymore. The West is not baseball mecca anymore. It's on the other side of the country now. And why is it? We can go all the way down to the youth level and figure it out because it goes from there all the way up. How do we perceive the game in the West Coast versus how they perceive the game down there? Look at the teams and how they're structured and how they go about their work in a trot. I was in Georgia last year, Aaron. I'm telling you, I saw a workout for an organization, and it was amazing how many kids came out to try to make two teams. I saw 80 kids trying to make two ball clubs. 80 kids, and I'm like, wow, where does that happen at? And I'm talking about the age group. Listen to this, Aaron. I think this is the craziest thing from 9 to 11. You don't see that out here. You don't see that on a regular basis out here. This is in the middle of the summer. These kids want to be on this team, and it's just a different mentality, you know. Is it recreation on West Coast versus, I think there's this tier. This you call it the four-star athlete, five-star athlete, right?
Hmm.
And we have that in the West Coast, but it seems like do we have a whole bunch of one-star, two-star recreational athletes now? And it didn't used to be that way. Is there too many baseball teams and not competitive enough on West Coast? People ask that all the time. Coaches ask that. Scouts ask that. Scouts, professional scouts I talk to ask that. And what's the difference between West Coast and East Coast baseball? You know, is it too, you know, recreational here in the West for the best
So,
players?
so you're saying the proliferation of travel baseball in on the West Coast has been different than in those other areas on the other side of the country, where maybe is it because there's so much money to be made with it that you can throw a stone and hit a travel team, which we've complained about before, versus yes, they have travel ball on the west on the other coast, but there's still there's not as much saturation, and so there's still a selection and a vetting process to get on those teams. Is that kind of has happened? You
To,
need to
to,
understand what I'm saying?
I totally understand. There's a saturation across the whole country,
Okay.
number one. But the difference is the saturation is I find it coming to the West Coast from these big organizations that have a lot of teams, and they
Yeah, yeah,
say,
yeah. Hmm.
I want to be part of this West Coast athlete. I want to be part of
Hmm.
this team. Well, you used to have they used to have two teams
Right,
that were the best.
right, right.
Now they have 50, 60 teams.
Hmm.
But everybody on the West Coast goes, hey, that's that organization. I want to jump in that because I'm going to be part of that. And they're not,
Hmm.
you know? The question is, big organization gets all these teams. These big organizations have two really good teams or one good team per age group.
Hmm.
Okay. Who's paying for those players?
Yeah.
Are the players the best players paying for it? Or
Right,
is it
right.
just manifested through I have all these teams and I have this plethora of money that I can just scholarship players out?
Yeah,
That's another podcast, man. And
yeah.
that's deep. That one's deep. So,
Now you see that in soccer too. You see that in
yeah,
other sports where
absolutely.
they call them feeder programs, but they're really not
Revenue
feeding.
generators,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Yeah, they're feeder programs from a revenue standpoint for the best
yeah.
players to play and get in the national stuff. Then everybody thinks that's where I need to go. That's the mentality of baseball.
Hmm.
Is that okay? We've got these guys, right? And we have all these teams that, oh yeah, they have a good organization. It's great. You see what they do nationally, but are they really playing? Are they developing players?
Hmm.
You and I are player developers. We develop players. Are people doing that? Or are they just trying to get on the best team and doing that and thinking they're going to develop?
Hmm.
It's interesting, and I think that's why the East Coast or those teams in the South and the Power Four, why they've gotten better is because they decided to say we're going to take the best players anywhere,
Hmm.
and we're gonna make sure we have the facilities and the resources for our players to be the best. Okay. That's why I feel those conferences are doing that. And people could say economics, yeah, it has something to do with it, but you can make things happen, man. You can make things happen the right way if you know how to do it.
Very interesting.
It's interesting, man. I think this is a two-part because there's a lot of layers we can peel back here, Aaron.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm just thinking about how it again trickles down to the youth athlete because that's kind of where obviously we've got our finger on the pulse in terms of
Right.
being able to help these athletes. So I'm just trying to figure out you know how can we help them navigate, which is obviously
Okay.
been a changing landscape and because we can't do anything structurally to it,
No, we
but
can't.
we got to be able to try and arm the parents and the athletes with the realities of what's out there, and maybe they can develop their own strategies on
Well,
how
can I
to.
tell you this though? And I think you said some really key points there. Strategy, planning, being into the process. We've talked about these things before. Our West Coast are all the West Coast athletes, whether they're tier one, tier two, tier three, five
Mhm,
star, one star, two star, are they vetted in the process? And I don't think they are. And I think those kids that are on the other side of the coast are more vetted into it.
mhm,
That's my
yeah,
opinion. I mean, I watch it. I watch how these kids and their culture of their teams we play. And I
mhm,
watch and go, hey, are these guys really involved in it? Are they invested in trying to be the best they can be on the field, off the field? Is this part of their journey? And I don't think as a whole we are invested on this side of this country. I don't think. I think there's guys that want to be it and be about it. I'm gonna say Logan Franson said this. He goes, EJ, you got to be about it.
yeah,
I said, you sure do. If you want to be where you want to be, you better be about it. And it's not showing up once in a while, Aaron. It's showing up every day. It's showing up when people don't see you and you show up,
yeah.
you know? And I don't see a lot of those kids showing up every day and being about it. I saw one girl in your facility who and you know who I'm talking
Oh
about.
yeah.
She's about it
Yeah,
and she's invested in it and she takes care of her body. She eats right. She studies. She's a great student. She's got personality. She talks to you.
yeah,
That's about being about it. And I think people just show up to show up now.
yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but
she's
that's the
unfortunately
truth.
she's the exception versus the rule.
Right.
And
And
there used to be
she's the
I used to
exception.
have a gym full of them. Actually, it
Right.
used to be the reverse, but yeah, and like I said, I think it has a lot to do with just the access to my type of training has become so mainstream and accessible. In other words, the velvet rope has gone. You know,
Hmm.
before there was all, like you said, there was a vetting process to be able to get onto a travel team. There were certain barriers to getting specialized training or instruction. And those barriers have been lowered, which, I guess is a good and a bad thing in terms of people having access. But with that, it's also been taken for granted. And I don't think people utilize those sorts of tools and services to their fullest anymore.
Well, the question I have, and you and I know this answer, is it was a privilege and honor to work with a really good trainer. And there was a respect that the athlete had for that trainer. And they couldn't wait to come in and work with that trainer. And they would be fully engaged in that 30, 40 minutes, hour time they worked with that trainer. They were like, that's what they wanted. And you could see it in their eyes, right? I don't see that anymore. I see it occasionally.
Yeah,
There's exception to the rule. We see
hmm,
that, but it used to be everybody was gauged like that.
yeah,
And we didn't have to play with the kids' heads so much, like get them on board with us. They
yeah,
were on board. They came in, they're like, I believe I'm great. I'm going for it. Now we have to talk to the athlete. Hey, you all right? You gonna be you good? You know, you know, are you all right mentally? It's more of that now that we're playing in the head of the athlete to try to get them to do what we want them to do physically.
yeah.
They're mentally not prepared to do it. So how can they do it physically? It's interesting. And I think that's the shift right there. That concept I just spoke about of why West Coast baseball, and why is this side over here,
Hmm.
and you can look at the rankings, and the rankings that tell you a story.
Yeah,
Look at basketball.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, right? I mean, look at basketball. Look at football. Just look at it now. Who was a power in USC and UCLA was on it till just a little bit, but it was USC powerhouse, powerhouse,
Mm-hmm.
powerhouse, right? Oregon now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who else on the West Coast? Can you give me a team on the West Coast besides Oregon that's a power in college football?
No, not at the level of the SEC teams.
Or the Big 12 or the
Yeah.
Big 10
Yeah.
or the ACC team,
ACC. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There it is, man. We said, hey, we had our opinion. There's our opinion, people.
Oh, it's a good one, man.
Good one,
Something to
man.
think
It's a good
about.
one. It's
Something to
something to
think
think.
about.
As something says, right? So, anyway, with that said, this is our podcast today. Ask Aaron, ask EJ. It's Coach Eric Johnson, the brand.
It's Coach Aaron Thigpen, the source. We'll see you.